Okay. Peterloo. Right? I'd like to talk today.
You gotta tell them who we are.
Oh, people know.
There's the Chris and Drew podcast thing.
Right, introduce yourself because your name's Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris.
I'm Andrew.
We spoil films.
So we're going highbrow. Right. We just watched the trailer for Peterloo.
We did. We watched it.
Can I ask you if you know
God.
literally anything? No, this is okay. No, actually, I'm going to say this first.
Right.
Mike Leigh, who directed the film,
Yep.
has said of Peterloo,
Right.
he knew nothing about it and wasn't taught about it in school.
Okay.
So, do you know anything about Peterloo? Like literally, when it happened, what it was, where it was, like even like
legitimately.
Yeah.
Going into this, I'm wondering, is this A, Waterloo, and B, who is Peter?
Right. Sure. These are valid questions.
I have absolutely
I
watched that trailer and it meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and it's not,
Absolutely not.
it's not a great trailer, but I suppose the problem is, as we will soon discover, easily 2 hours of this film is talking. Like political debate, which is fine, but...
Which we know from the Star Wars prequels is not well received.
Indeed. So, like... Before I start talking about this film, what I will say is I think it's partly like... It's kind of a bit like watching Titanic.
Okay.
So what I mean is... 99% of people, maybe more than that, in the cinema watching Titanic knew the boat was going to sink. You go into that film knowing the boat's going to sink.
Sure.
I think the problem is Peterloo. I sat down knowing it was going to end with a massacre.
Right.
I'm not quite certain that that film was made with that in mind. If you had sat down in that cinema, you would have no idea what was going to happen.
Sure.
Entirely reasonably.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to have this problem of... Like, the trailer didn't really give away the fact that it ended with a massacre.
Until you told me, I would have had no idea there was a massacre in there.
So, I think maybe part of the problem is, if you're sitting down watching it come, and you know what's happening, it's a bit like if Titanic had been kind of made as a, oh, what's going to happen to the boat?
Yeah, like, twist ending, everyone dies.
But your Waterloo point is very valid. Because the film...
that's the only Lou I know.
The film opens with a title card.
Okay.
So there's a paragraph of text on screen which talks about the Battle of Waterloo.
Okay. So this is after Waterloo?
Yeah. Well,
right.
In 1815, the Duke of Wellington... I'm sorry, what's this here? In 1815, the Duke of Wellington defeats Napoleon Bonaparte at the Battle of Waterloo with the help of the Prussians under Blucher. Right?
Okay.
Now this rang alarm bells...
Fun fact, the only reason I know about Prussians is because Epic Rap Battles of History mentioned them in a video when they were doing raps.
Then frankly, you should be ashamed of yourself, and we could talk about that independent of this.
My history is terrible. I hate everybody.
And that rang alarm bells for me because I was thinking, well, like, why am I being told about Waterloo? And the reason became very quickly apparent because the opening shots of the film take place on the battlefield of Waterloo.
Okay.
You see a young laddie, a bugler.
That's a boy. Just to clarify.
Be done with your racist bullshit.
That's a boy.
Policing.
He didn't say lady.
Policing my language.
He meant a boy.
So we open on the young laddie on the battlefield. He's a bugler, and he's staring around, so amused by your own nonsense. I'll give you a moment.
Oh, we're all derailed. Okay, no, concentrate. Okay,
right.
There's a young bugler, not
he's
the dog.
And he's looking around. That's a beagle. Fucking moron. Bugler only means bugler. Absolute fucking idiot. Jesus Christ.
Cut this.
The fucking veins in your forehead.
No, it's gone. Right, sorry. There's a bugler. We're only like 5 minutes in.
On the
This is going to be a
battlefield, on the
disaster.
battlefield of Waterloo.
Right.
And there's guys being dragged past him, wounded and screaming, and there's boys running past him, firing off muskets, and there's cavalry charging past him, and he's staring around, traumatized and terrified, occasionally blowing his bugle. And I swear to you, fucking hell,
I'm crying.
That's crazy. This is so dumb.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know what's taking me. Oh, sorry, that's very serious. There's, it's a battle. Oh, Christ, okay. Sorry.
Literal tears streaming down your face.
Oh. Right. Okay, no,
I was sat in the cinema 30 seconds into this film, and at that exact moment I thought, okay, right, so this boy is going to end up at the massacre at Peterloo.
Okay.
We're going to get a shot which entirely mirrors this, where he's looking around at cavalry and people screaming, and it was a bit like, well, okay, well now already I sort of feel like maybe that's not fair, but I was sat already kind of primed for fuck off.
Yeah.
So,
do you not think though that like with you going in, like you were saying about the Titanic thing, like going in knowing about the boat sinking, like you going in knowing that battle was at the end, do you think that wrecked that first scene for you because you're like, oh, I'm going to see this shot again later?
I don't know, because, well, yes, it did wreck it for me, but I also don't know, should you make a historical film assuming that your audience doesn't know where it's going?
Well,
but no, the thing is, that's not even that. I mean, that's literally, I thought, why am I being told about Waterloo? And then we cut to Waterloo, and I think that's why. So I'm automatically kind of, maybe because I went to the cinema to see this on my own, so maybe because I was sat there on my own, it was less of a kind of like, oh, are we enjoying this? And I was kind of maybe watching it with a more kind of like, what's actually going on?
Like a critical eye.
But like, it was like, right, well, there's only reason to be here is, okay, here's this lad, he stood here in this battlefield, and all I'm doing is watching him look around terrified. And like, what was the... Now, in its defence, it kind of justified it, because of the scenes that immediately follow, you see him trudging his way through England to get home, heading to Manchester, and interspersed with that you see Parliament, and you see the Prime Minister, Lord Liverpool, proposing that the Duke of Wellington, as a token of thanks for defeating Napoleon, be awarded £700,000 on top of the thanks of the nation. And it kind of cuts between that and, you know, this laddie with the arse hanging out of his trousers, dragging himself up to Manchester on foot. I suppose
like direct parallels,
it's conceivably just that, right, we've just won this great battle and we're celebrating it, but actually look at the state of how we're treating it.
Everyone's fucked.
Right. You also, and this is another fucking inexplicable choice, in this first little bit you see the Home Secretary meeting a general who has served under Wellington, and appointing him head of the the north of England. He is in charge of the north of England militarily. He's going to go up there. He's in charge of the military of the north of England.
Sure.
You're introduced to this boy, and you sort of think, again, I'm sat there as someone that knows, right, this is ending in a massacre. So I'm sat there thinking, right, okay, so this boy is the guy that's in charge of this. He's our villain. And he even, during the conversations, like, oh, the north of England, not Ireland. And me, again, was thinking, okay, so we're establishing he's bloodthirsty because he wants to go to Ireland because Ireland's more likely to rise up. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to get some action. Yeah, indeed, yeah. What he is like. So, we get introduced to this boy.
Sure.
You're getting up to the north of England.
Hey, twiddling his mustache.
You're going to be in charge of the military. Right, fine. Okay, cool. We're 4 minutes into this film. This film lasts 2 hours and 34 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Oh.
The massacre happens tops half an hour. I imagine closer to 20 minutes from the movie.
Oh, okay.
We're about to enter 2 straight hours of nothing but political chat.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
I quite enjoy a bit of like political chat in a movie. They really did do an effort to dive into this stuff. Yeah. And they really did make an effort-ish to try and represent as many viewpoints as possible. So you follow this montage, you follow this bit at the beginning with a montage of 3 working class people in court. Okay. In front of 3 different magistrates. One of them is sentenced to hang for stealing a jacket.
Sure.
His justification being, my master had two, I didn't have one, now we each have one jacket, what's the problem? He's sent to hang. One boy steals a pocket watch that he says he'd won in a card game. He's sentenced to transportation to Australia. And a woman who stole 2 bottles of claret from her master's cellar is sentenced to like 40 lashes and 15 days in jail or something like that, right? And then our young boy gets back to Manchester, our soldier, where he comes back home to his mum and like collapses in her arms sobbing, clearly traumatized by his experiences defeating Napoleon. Why is this funny?
I just remembered the beagle thing. Oh, I'm so sorry.
You not knowing dog names.
Oh, fuck. I'm such an idiot. Jesus Christ. Sorry, continue. I keep interrupting.
It's fine. So he gets back home, he cries, you meet his family. Like, you see the fact they're all working people. His mum, she makes pies and then sells them around. Like, she literally walks around selling pies. Dad works in a weaver's. You never really see what the rest of them do, but like essentially, as his dad leaves his weaver's job, all his family joins him on the walk home. They're working people in Manchester. Yeah. Manchester was basically a weaving place. They all work somehow in that industry. So the dad and his 2 sons they're already attending political meetings, radical meetings, essentially with this express purpose of trying to attain the vote, but like also kind of like you just see political meetings. You just sat watching political meetings.
Yeah.
So you're introduced to three laddies, one of whom you saw in the trailer, the young boy from My Mad Fat Diary.
Oh god, right.
So he's one of these 3 boys, and they do these kind of like rolling speeches where one says a couple of sentences, then the one steps in, and the one steps in. But they're obviously incredibly radical. So they give these speeches, which is essentially just like socialism. They want to redistribute wealth. They want to universal franchise. Blah 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 blah. But very early on, it's established that one of them is incredibly radical and basically says, right, we need to take our demands to the Prince Regent. If the Prince Regent ignores us, we take it to the King. If the King ignores us, we are then entitled to kidnap the King and his family until we are.
That's a step up.
Until we are,
like that, yeah.
And it's demonstrated that a lot of people at these meetings are a bit like, that's too far, son. Like, come on, what are you saying? Okay. Because of the timeline of this film, I'm going to present it this way.
Okay.
For the first 45 minutes to an hour of this film, you see these 3 boys giving speeches. These 3 guys sort of saying, we need to kidnap the king, we need to make radical steps, we need to organise, we need to make sure we are going to do this.
Sure.
You then see the 4 magistrates, 3 of whom were introduced in court cases, but there's 4 of them, the magistrates of Manchester. You see them arranging with basically the secret police. Some guy comes to them and says, I can sort you out, I can get information on them.
Yeah.
He meets up with one of these 3 boys and basically gets him to say that they are armed and have weapons to use if necessary. At the hour mark of this film,
Jesus,
these 3 boys are arrested and thrown in jail.
Right.
You never see them again. That is the end of their involvement in this film. After having watched them deliver multiple speeches.
So, do they have the charisma to be delivering these? Like,
I mean, I agree with everything they were saying. I mean,
yes,
obviously, they were. I think the problem is this film seems to have the point of this film seems to be to represent as many voices as possible.
Sure. To
try and say, here was what everything was said at this time. Here is what was said in the lead up to this moment.
Yeah.
And yes, this guy said, let's kidnap the king. But this is my problem. My problem is, fundamentally, do you know the boat's going to sink or not? Is the point that you're meant to be sat there thinking, well, this is going to end in a massacre, but the boy who said, let's kidnap the king, was in jail from the halfway point of this movie.
Yeah.
The boy who said, yes, we're armed, was in jail from the halfway point in this movie.
Oh, that was
all 3 of them. There's 3 of them.
Yeah, no.
Just. 'Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. This is the one who said, let's kidnap the king. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, laddie, is the proper long-haired one. Kidnap the king, my Mad Fat Diary laddie
Right.
was the no, we're armed, and he's like meant to be 19. He's meant to be like preposterously young, but still well thought of in the community.
Yeah.
These three boys are lifted, thrown in jail. That's them done. Never see them again.
That's weird.
So I suppose the point is, if you hadn't included them at all, you would have sort of thought, well, at no point was anyone saying anything particularly threatening. Whereas because you've got these three, you've got slight justification, I suppose, for the authorities being disturbed, because one of these boys is literally saying, let's kidnap the king.
Yeah.
One of them saying, oh, I know we're armed.
Yeah.
But at the hour mark, they're in jail, never to be seen again. And I've listened to them talk.
That's weird that you just, like, fair enough if you're going to throw them in jail or whatever, but, like, the fact that you don't see them again?
Very strange. So they're locked up in the clink. You see the deputy, he's quite famous, not quite famous, but he's relatively well known. Do you mind the TV show The Thin Blue Line? It's very niche.
I mean,
when Rowan Atkinson.
No, I remember the show. I couldn't
remember the kind of big detective. Yeah, well, you'll know.
I know the show. But
big. Everyone. This film takes place in Manchester. Everyone's northern. The kind of big northern boy who was a police officer in that. You would know him to see him. He's this kind of police constable. Obviously, there was no such thing as a police force at this point, but there were things such as police constables. They worked for magistrates.
Yeah.
So he kicks fuck out of my Mad Fat Diary laddie in his jail cell, and you never see them again. That's done. Sweet, right?
It's so weird. Why, like, whatever.
So you're introduced to the kind of middle class radicals of Manchester.
Okay.
They run the newspapers. They're the ones that are organising. They're the ones that are sort of saying, you know, what we need is an extended franchise, voting rights for everyone. They basically are pushing for one man, one vote.
Sure.
Women can fuck off, but one man, one vote.
True. And
the whole film is pushing for this, right? Not mentioning the fact that, well, see, it would be unrealistic to have anyone at any point say maybe votes for women, because it's it's some point in the second half of the 1810s, but they begin organising this vote. You see two of them go down to London and they see a guy called Henry Hunt give a speech. He was a very famous speech giver, so much so that his nickname was Orator Hunt. He was a radical from the West Country who was useful because he was entitled to the vote. He was rich enough and a landowner, so he was entitled to the vote, right?
Yeah.
So they're like...
Tell me this.
Yeah.
He's Orator Hunt.
Yeah.
But were his speech... I presume he gave more than one, but were his speeches in the movie better than the three lads? Or not? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, those three lads are what, like 19, all of them?
Well, the youngest one is, yeah.
The youngest one's 19? Yeah. I mean, and at that time, is it
no,
realistic for a 19-year-old to like just be standing up and be like, "Hey, you should all do this"?
That's a good point. And there's a fascinating decision made by this movie, and it may be because it's substantiated by a historical record, but so many of the characters are arseholes. Orator Hunt, Henry Hunt, is portrayed as nothing less than a cunt.
Yeah.
The entire fucking film. Like, he is campaigning for votes for all men. He wants universal suffrage. But he's just a prick. Like, he's just constantly a dickhead. So these two boys go down from Manchester, introduce themselves. How we doing? We're from Manchester. Love the speech.
Yeah.
His speech was fine, but it's a 19th century, an early 19th century political speech.
Sure.
Saying things like, I think men should be allowed to vote. It's difficult to not be like, well, yeah, I agree with you, but it's not like it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not Nelson Mandela. So, they say to him, we'd like you to come to Manchester to give a speech. He's like, fine. Organise it, I'll come give a speech. Sure. He has given speeches in London with like 100,000 people there. He's given these mass demonstrations. That's his thing. Yeah. He does these mass demonstrations, tens of thousands of folks show up, he talks.
Done.
Sweet. So that's the ball rolling. We know now there's going to be a meeting in Manchester, a mass meeting in Manchester, for him to speak. Fine. We're then at the midpoint of this film. Once this first gets mentioned, and it's like a fucking trek, right?
Oh my god.
We're at the midpoint of this movie, and you're introduced to your general boy for the second time.
Oh my! Has he not been in it for the whole time since he was like half an hour in?
3 scenes.
Holy fuck! And he's like technically the bad guy.
Scene number 2. Right.
Jesus, what?
Magistrates are getting worried about this talk of a meeting.
Yep.
They get to him and say, right, what's going on with this meeting? We want the army there. We need military presence. Blah 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 blah. And he says, right, Sure, it's all in hand. Have military forces there. Just so you know, though, I can't be there. I'm busy that day. Right? I'm going to be busy that day. I can't be there. But my second in command, Colonel Lestrange, I think.
Of course.
Colonel Lestrange, with a French name. And that's what I thought. I thought that was the point. Was my Colonel Lestrange will be in charge. Don't worry, great man. And in fact, it is two scenes really, but they're together. You first see him talking at his country pile to this guy, to Lestrange. You see him meeting his second command. And it's just literally a conversation of, right, you'll be fine. They shake hands, he gets on his horse, he rides away. Then you see him talking to the magistrate saying, I can't be there that day, lads, but don't worry, he's in charge. So, because we know a massacre's coming, I'm not going to pretend it isn't. Like I'm not going to present the film as it is. I was sort of thinking, right, am I now meant to believe if this guy had been there, it wouldn't have happened? Is that meant to be what I'm being told? That, there was the problem, that this guy, who I've met once an hour ago, whose only thing was like, we're not getting Ireland, which makes me think, well, I don't think it would be more restrained. Or is this just, I'm presenting you all the facts? But I sort of feel like, why did I have to meet this cunt? Like, why did I have to meet this boy if he's not even going to be in charge on the day, and he's not been a player? He's not moved or influenced anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point.
I've been introduced to him as the guy who was in charge, and now he's handing over a second command. Fine. He pisses off till scene number 3, and scene number 3 is a fucking corker. But we get, you know what? I actually missed a moment, and it was because it wasn't as bad as I was terrified it was, which is actually right at the beginning. Once you get back to Manchester, and you're introduced to the lives of deprivation these people are living. Their houses are terrible, their food's low. It just cuts to this woman sat in a doorway who starts looking at camera and singing. And I had a real moment of, fuck me, like, is she like the fucking Greek chorus? She like sings this kind of sad song, and it then cuts away from her to all the terrible things going on. But she just sings, like, not down the barrel.
Sure.
She's not, but she's basically Greek chorusing it. She's basically singing this sad song. And I was fucking terrified.
That's a strange choice.
That was alarm bell number 2. I was thinking, if she's going to turn up every 5 minutes,
that's a very strange choice for an otherwise straight road movie.
There was like a second musical interlude later on, where 3 laddies were sat by the side of a pond, basically, but up in the hills, playing fiddles and shit.
Sure.
And I think that the sort of point was, they're going to be the band to help the marching.
Okay, yeah.
But there's just 3 guys playing fiddles and 2 lassies on the other side of the water, kind of staring at them, that's nice. And it's like, this is 2.5 hours, man. Let's cut this shit out and we can get this moving.
We don't have time for this.
It's just like so much.
I don't have all day. People are barely coming to this anyway.
I like a solid 90 minutes in a movie, and I have to say, anything over that, I feel has to be justified. And there's some superfluous shit.
We could have definitely cut shit down.
So, Henry Hunt arrives in Manchester, gets off his coach,
Orator Hunt.
Here from a speech.
Sure.
Bad news. The authorities are not happy with us, so we've delayed it by a week to try and get this all sorted.
A week's a long time.
Well, fucking 1819. Yeah. He's dragged his arse. Well, he's dragged his arse.
I was going to say, like, a week's the same length.
People don't live a long time. So he's dragged his arse up from London, and is understandably, he's an arsehole, he's understandably a bit upset. Like,
sure.
Alright, fine. They put him up in this boy's house, where he's just a prick to everybody. His portrait is painted by Dolores Ed from Game of Thrones.
Oh, Westworld.
Dolores Ed paints his portrait in Ed of the Night's Watch. Oh, Dolores. Funny. Yeah. Not the same word, but fucking hell. You're very much amused by yourself this evening.
It's not even funny in the slightest. I don't know why. They just keep tickling me so much. Yes, your mom from Game of Thrones
paints his portrait.
That's,
and he's like, so I have to watch a portrait again.
Why? Yeah, no, but why is he getting his portrait?
Well, he's famous.
But apart from like, hey, let's
well,
he's
famous.
Like, who cares?
He's famous. He's got. I don't know. And the boy says to him, "Oh yeah, so you're giving your big speech tomorrow." And he's like, yeah. He's like, "Oh, my wife's gonna go." He's like, "Are you gonna go?" He's like, "Nah, I'm not much one for talking."
Sure.
And I feel like, what have I learned here? Like, a lot of
the problem with that is it would be different if it was him getting his portrait done, like where he was giving the speech, or hey, we're gonna try and do this really quickly while you're in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
Instead of we're just gonna do another picture of you
Yeah, I've got a fucking
in
week
my
to go.
house. Like that's.
That
doesn't add anything.
No, I just don't.
It doesn't
I
add
just
anything.
don't because it doesn't add anything beyond. My wife's gonna go and I'm not.
Yeah.
So speaking of wives, we get the film seems to be trying to represent as many viewpoints as possible. This is explicitly a campaign because he says himself, right? There's no point making this grand push. This rally in St. Peter's Field, St. Petersfield, is exclusively about extending the franchise. One man, one vote. That's all we're campaigning for. That's all I'm going to talk about. This is the point.
Sure.
And it tries to represent as many viewpoints in that as possible. But we do get a meeting of a group of radical women.
Okay.
We get this. It cuts to, absolutely out of nowhere, it cuts to a meeting of women, and there's a couple of speeches given of, like, you know, this is the what is wrong with you? Genuinely, what's occurring? This is the world's least funny movie.
Do you know what? I tried to hold that back. Like, I was desperately trying to hold that back, and I was like trying to take a drink, but like smiling in
I know. I saw you trying to drink through your smirking.
Do you know what it was? Here's the point where I might have had too much to drink in like such a short space of time. But as soon as you said radical, all I pictured was like all these women on skateboards with turtle shells.
I mean, I appreciate some of the words are difficult.
Oh, I can't. I don't know what it is. Like, all this is telling me is that I would not have been able to survive this movie.
Fuck, you wouldn't have lasted. If you'd lasted 20
not,
minutes, I'd have been amazed. If you'd lasted past the women selling pies, the women selling pies would have been you out.
Yeah, no.
And it's Maxine Peake, and she's fucking incredible.
Who's Maxine Peake?
You watched Dinner Ladies?
Yeah.
Twinkle.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
She's great.
She's great.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
Everybody uniformly is good in this movie, including young soldier laddie, who's got that kind of unenviable task of being the waifish.
Sure, yeah.
You know that character that exists in so many fucking British films, which is a kind of waifish, black, wavy-haired boy who's confused and nervous.
Yeah.
And, sorry, Mom.
Yeah, and that's used an awful lot.
So much in British films. It's fucking terrifying. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, mate, come on. And it's a thankless task, and he does alright with it, but Christ alive.
You're better than this.
Yes, well...
Maybe.
So, fuck me. The women's meeting.
Radical women.
We get a speech by the chairwoman of this group. And there's a lot of working class women kind of shouting like, no, what are you talking about? I don't even understand what you're saying. And I kind of like that because the point was, it's these two women using very, very big words to talk about the situation.
Yeah,
and I quite like the fact that there's these working class women like, what are you talking about? But the problem is it never gets down to them saying, this is about food, and it just gets this.
It's like very like afterthought, like, hey, these people wouldn't know. Maybe we should have somebody go like,
but
hey,
also,
what does that mean?
The whole thing felt like afterthought, which is, should we maybe put some women in this beyond Maxine Peake comforting her children? Like, let's put some women in it. But it's just like, well, if you're going to put women in it, cut the three boys in jail out, who I don't need to see.
Yeah, because I mean they haven't added anything since they got put to prison. These
women are going to be at this march.
Sure.
So maybe give me a little bit more on them, because we see them genuinely. Maybe a 5-minute scene of them having a little debate, and we don't see them again till the march, where they're this kind of like unified force. It's just like, all right, okay, fine.
Yeah, to be fair, like even from what sounds like you should have given them more backstory.
Get rid of General and irrelevance.
Yeah,
Get rid of these three boys.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. A lot of what's said, I come at it from two ways. So right at the eve of the march, one of the organisers, one of the Manchester organisers, comes to Henry Hunt and says, right, we've got guys drilling, we've got professional marchers drilling. They understand how to move as one. They can shield the march.
Sure.
What we would like to do is issue a few dozen of the men with weapons. We would like some of the men at the march armed.
Okay.
So that in the event of the authorities cracking down, we have some means of protecting ourselves from this. And Henry Hunt says, no, absolutely not. There can be no provocation. We need to be peaceable.
Fair, yeah.
But that's the thing. Am I supposed to take from that scene that, oh, isn't it a shame that they weren't armed to defend themselves ultimately? Or am I meant to take from that scene, oh, they weren't armed because they want to be good? It makes what happens even more tragic.
Okay, yeah, no, fair.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm meant to be learning from these scenes. I
mean, that's saying they should have pushed you one way or the other on that. Like, you can't leave that. You can't leave that.
But then I think it's deliberate. I think the point is make up your own mind.
Yeah.
But it's just like, well, why am I like? Okay, none of them are armed. So I'm taking it as just a.
But is then like because you were saying that they made such an effort to push forward that everybody's voice was heard at every part of this. Is that a deliberate choice then to be like, oh, we're not taking sides?
Yeah, I mean,
who knows what they were thinking?
To a certain extent, I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But I think this is it. Okay, your three radical boys at the start are there because they've said the shit that's got everyone panicked at the top.
Yeah.
So okay, that's why they're there.
Yeah.
But then is that why we're showing this later on to be like, but our people are really, really good and are armed? They explicitly show, as the marches begin, they show that same guy who'd gone to ask if they could carry weapons, specifically telling his little group of the march to lay down their clubs and walking sticks. We're taking nothing at all with us.
Yeah.
We are going unarmed. So right, off we all go.
Okay.
But 60,000 people, we march.
And how far into the movie does this march start?
I mean, we're now maybe at the 2 hour mark. At this point we're at 90% political activism and debate. And we do cut back to the magistrates occasionally talking about how the poor are scum and pathetic children and they don't know what they're doing. Isn't it terrible?
Sure.
And at one point,
how it should be.
At one point, one of the four of them says, I think we're massively overacting. Could we not just impress upon the mill owners to add $1 a month to their salaries?
Yeah.
They'll be less hungry. And they all shout him down. And then from that point, he's as much of an arsehole as the rest of them. So that's that done. So the march begins. We're all on our way. We get our little women's group again. They're kind of they all wear white as they're walking.
Sure.
But do get abuse screamed at them by kind of elderly women in houses who call them whores and tell them to get back to their husbands. So it's kind of established that they weren't universally popular and it was controversial for this women's group to exist.
Yeah.
So right, we all pile into St. Peter's Field in Manchester. 60,000 people. Hunt gets there, climbs up on stage. The magistrates have rented a room. No, I've missed part. We see the magistrates having dinner that morning.
Okay. So
they're all sat at this long table, the magistrates and the kind of high hedgeons of Manchester, having dinner. They, at the end of this dinner, at a point of dinner, all say a toast, and they say to King and Country, right?
Sure.
King and Country. It then cuts outside to when we're introduced to the yeomanry. Do you know who the yeomanry are?
Nope, no idea.
Right, great. So if we're assuming this film is thinking that you don't know what is happening and who anyone is, I think assuming you know who the yeomanry are is quite a leap. But we're introduced.
If you know nothing, what's that? Why the fuck would you know?
There's a bunch of dudes stood around wearing blue military uniforms.
Sure.
They're getting pissed outside. They're doing the
I like the cut of their
They're doing the King and Country thing, but they're smashing their cups together and getting booze everywhere, and they're getting rowdy outside.
No,
right?
in
their uniforms,
classic,
blue with white crosses. They basically look like Scottish flags, stoating about in their uniforms, getting pissed outside. Right?
Sure.
We're in St. Peter's Field. The magistrates have rented a room that overlooks it. So they all pile in, open the windows, look out. Here come everybody. We've been marching. In we call come. So, it's such a long film, Christopher. It's such a long film. So they're basically talking amongst themselves, saying, "Right, we need to shut this down. This is terrible. We need to arrest Hunt. We need to arrest everybody. Shut this down."
Okay.
The police, the police doesn't exist. The
Constable.
The deputy constable we know moves in with his men, and they clear a route to the dais. But they don't do anything. They just clear this route for themselves.
Yep.
They all sit there. Hunt begins talking. They read the riot act out of the window, but it is demonstrated that obviously it's ridiculous that anyone could hear this. There's a speech going on. They read the riot act out the window. They sign off some arrest warrants, and the constabulary moves up and nicks Hunt, basically everyone on the stage, which includes a number of journalists, because it's a guy who's come up from London, the guy from the Times come up from London. This is a big thing. Hunt's very famous. It's the first one of these meetings in Manchester. So they basically arrest everybody, journalists included, off the stage. The crowd gets a little bit agitated, funnily enough. So we're now sending the yeomanry in. Let's restore order. The constabulary are in trouble. We need to do something about this.
Yep.
Is how it's presented. We're worried about these guys arresting this lot. Send them in.
Yep.
But and this is like an objectively just a filmmaking criticism. The yeomanry very much just arrive. Like, it's just suddenly there are these guys, kind of anticlimactically. But I don't know if it's the point, which is they're meant to be like, you're a mass crowd. You would see this coming.
Yeah.
As it's not like sirens. It's just suddenly there's guys on horses with swords cutting into the crowd.
Sure.
But basically, there are suddenly guys on horseback cutting into the crowd. Our yeomanry start slicing their way through. There's a fascinating moment very early on, and now I will refer to the real history of the Peterloo massacre.
Okay.
Which is that the first fatality was a 2-year-old boy, because
that's a great effort.
When the yeomanry,
if you're aiming,
but see, this is it.
That's a small target.
When the yeomanry was sent off, so they all go tearing off. They were 2 streets away. They get sent to deal with it. One of them was like taking a piss or still getting his boots on or something.
Okay.
So this one guy was left on his own. He gets himself ready, jumps on his horse, and is late. He's far behind him. So he goes tearing off towards the field.
Overly keen.
And a woman crossing the road, not part of the demonstration, a woman crossing the road holding her child, is knocked down by his horse. And her 2-year-old son is killed.
That's grim.
But as it's presented on screen, it's after the yeomanry have started pushing into the crowd. A woman is knocked down holding a baby, and her baby is stamped on by a horse as it charges past. Like, explicitly on screen. And I'm sort of like, well, are we referencing the real event? Are we referencing the real event? Or are we just now, like...
So, but, like, I mean, clearly they knew that this happened... So why would they do this?
You can find out that laddie's name. You can find out the name of everyone that died at the Peterloo massacre.
Jesus, that's brave.
It's very straight. Yeah,
it's brave.
I'm going to retell.
That's a brave.
I'm going to retell the death of an infant.
Holy shit! like out of all the things you'd like, yeah, no, we should maybe just like gloss over this a little.
This fascinating thing.
Holy shit!
I don't know how many historically films you watch. But are you aware of the phenomenon?
Zero.
Are you aware of?
I watched Braveheart.
Well, that's fine.
It's because he's Scottish.
There's a thing that happens very often.
Sure.
With films that are portraying historical events, where you'll get this weird moment where, in the midst of a lot of action, the camera will stop and focus on a tiny little vignette, and and it's because that little moment is historical fact.
Yes.
So it's like, you know this bit happened, so here you go. So I think it's in From Here to Eternity, or maybe it's actually Tora Tora Tora. One of the films about the attack on Pearl Harbor. In fact, it was in colour, so I'm almost certain it was Tora Tora Tora.
Yeah.
There's this weird moment in the middle of Tora 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 while the Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor, and the camera suddenly cuts to a AA gun, and a black guy runs out of the ship, grabs a hold of it, and he's dressed in a kind of like chef's uniform, and starts firing the gun.
Oh, your man from Snow Dogs.
And it cuts away. Are you talking about Cuba Gooding Jr.? Because he played the part later on. Well, yeah. Well, no. You know what? I've never seen Pearl Harbor, so I've forgotten that Cuba Gooding Jr. plays this same part later on. But that's my point. My point is, that's a real thing.
I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
That's all I can remember is he did
but that's the thing. That's a real thing.
Oh.
And when they made Tora Tora Tora, the filmmakers clearly didn't feel like they could put a black character in it.
Sure.
So they just show this real moment. Like he won the Medal of Honor or something for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he won something.
They showed this moment in Tora 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 as like but then we'll not reference this.
Oh, okay.
So there feels like a kind of and I felt these moments where there was a couple of them throughout this scene.
Sure.
But the baby stamping bit was also presented exactly like that. I mean, it's just not what happened. Yes, they killed a 2-year-old, but it wasn't a. Yeah, it wasn't. She wasn't there. Like, is it not more tragic that it's some lassie crossing the street?
How much? I mean,
you see
how much detail do we get?
You see it quite a wide shot. A infant. I mean, it's a bundle of rats.
Sure.
You see an infant being stamped on by a horse as it runs past. You see enough to know that kid's dead.
Yeah, that's definitely a dead kid.
It's a dead baby. So
that's a brave.
The problem is
brave choice.
There's also a problem that's kind of built into film, and it's not really their fault, but it's been quite a slow film up until this point.
Sure, yeah.
By quite a slow film, it's been an incredibly slow film at this point. So there's a kind of you don't want to experience a massacre as a kind of cathartic release.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, alright, something's happening now. The problem is, you're now just basically watching a massacre. You're now just basically watching a bunch of guys on horseback stream in, cut fuck it, folk, right?
Sure.
Now, the magistrates see the yeomanry, they're moving in, they begin to get bogged down slightly, and they're concerned,
of course,
because there's 60,000 people here. They panic and call in the army. So up shows our deputy boy,
sure,
with the hussars. So the hussars all ride in, and in they go, right?
Okay.
So now we're not just got a bunch of pissed up yeomanry, we've got the actual army coming in on horseback, again, swords flailing. But again, a strange decision is made where one of the yeomanry guys is on horseback and he's riding around and he's cutting fuck out of folk, and he turns around and this old lady looks at him in the eye and says, "I know you're Betty McGinn's son."
Yeah,
or something.
You're Dave's boy.
And he's like, "Shut up." But then another
shut up, you.
One of the hussar, like a hussar captain, rides in and holds the sword to him and says, "You know, what are you doing? Behave yourself. This is ridiculous. She's an old lady. She's no threat.
Yeah.
Fuck you." And then rides off, but doesn't. This doesn't stop this guy. So the old lady gets away, but we see that guy explicitly kill a guy we were introduced to as the speeches were starting. Maxine Peake shares her bread, the food she's got with people around her.
Yeah.
The guy, one of the guys she gives her food to, we see him explicitly kill him. We see an old man, and this is my problem. Why have we introduced hundreds of characters who aren't here, and then suddenly we're introduced to an old man sat down. It's the first thing we've seen him. This old man sat in a pile of logs. Like, "Oh, my legs are tired." And his wife's like, "Come on, we got to get out of here." And he's like, "Oh, stop barging me." And then guy rides past and just stabs him in the chest and keeps on riding. And see him bleed now. I'm just like, why do I have to meet 20 people who aren't fucking here?
Yeah.
And now this is just some old guy.
Could you imagine though that if you're introducing all these like random, not important sub characters, that the sole purpose was that, hey, this might get a little bit of an emotional reaction when we finally kick in the massacre.
We see our main, like the kind of chairwoman of the ladies, I forget their name, they're something like the ladies reform committee or something. We see her get slashed across the chest.
Sure. And
we see an awful lot of them being quite specifically targeted. So I think that's again an attempt to reflect history, which is that whilst women made up maybe 10 to 15% in the march, they were like more than a quarter of the victims of the violence.
You're right, yeah.
So clearly they were being targeted, because otherwise why in the hell would they the ones get hurt? So it sort of feels like, well, okay, we need to introduce them because they're the ones that get stabbed all the time. But yeah, you're just now watching a massacre. And yes, we get our scene where Soldier Laddie is stood, looking around, seeing cavalry officers charging along, and again, the very same yeomanry boy who's already stabbed 2 people shouts, "Oi, soldier boy," and he turns around and gets run through as he goes sailing past.
But then what's the point
of
him? of Soldier Boy.
He says,
like, it would be different if you were getting like the whole shot at him at the beginning.
If he says 15 words for the entire movie, I'd be amazed.
But there's no point to that, other than just being like, oh my god, I feel so bad. Like he's had such a tough time. Like, I would say, but apart from that, like
the reason
it means nothing.
The reason is pretty explicit, which is the reason that it is called Peterloo is that it took place in St. Peter's Field. Yeah, it took place on St. Peter's Field, and journalists after the fact dubbed it Peterloo, like Waterloo.
No,
because it was really violent. So yeah, it's that. It's just I point out, the reason the boy shouts "Oi, soldier boy" is because he's still wearing his uniform.
Right.
Battle of Waterloo took place in 1815. Peterloo Massacre took place in 1890. So he's wearing his uniform for 4 years later on. Still, it's not changed. Now, it is true, we occupied France after Napoleon was defeated. It's not... The only date you ever see for the entire thing is at the start of the title card.
Right.
But that has to be Waterloo. There were no battles after Waterloo. That was it. So that had to be Waterloo. After that, you see him going home, but that wasn't necessarily immediate. But either way, either he was an occupying soldier for years, or 4 years have passed, which makes sense. Like campaigns take a long time. But he's still wearing his uniform.
Like, no,
he must have been stinking.
Yeah. I mean, that just feels like we need an emotional hit for the movie. Like, oh, he's been through so much already.
So we see him
dead.
See him get stabbed. We see a lot of people get stabbed. Like, there's hundreds of victims of the Peterloo Massacre. Like, deaths were relatively small number, but then that's counting dead bodies in the field. In the early 19th century, you're probably dying if you're getting a saber blade to the chest. And we get our second moment of like, okay, this clearly happened, which is the same hussar officer who stopped the yeomanry boy killing the old lady.
Okay.
At one point, kind of shouts to everyone assembled this very... Because the whole point of Mike Leigh is Mike Leigh makes films by getting his actors to come in, presenting what the point of the scene is. They improvise and improvise and improvise, and then at some point he says, yes, that's it.
That's the
and they film that.
Yeah.
This boy says something along the lines of, Gentlemen, control yourselves, for shame, can you see there's nowhere for the people to go? And that's a direct quote of a guy at the time. You can tell you his name. But it just sort of plays, it's like, oh, I'm like, what?
I mean, here's the thing. If I'm in a fucking mad bloodlust, killing loads of people around me, somebody being like, excuse me! Excuse me, gentlemen, for shame!
Well,
for shame!
Probably if it does fuck all.
Is not going to do shit all for me.
The strangest thing happens. At some point there's like cavalry sweeping in, and then suddenly you're looking at about 8 horses riding towards you with jockeys on their back, wearing jockey silks.
Sure.
They're riding towards camera. And I honestly for a minute, like, fuck, if they like spilled over and we're going to see the people streaming across this field fleeing the violence.
Right.
But no, you're just watching a horse race, and the horse is running, and they cross the finish line, and we get our third scene with the general, and the reason he wasn't there is because he's watching this horse race. And like he stood like, oh damn, my horse didn't make it. And the guy next to him's like, oh, bad luck, son.
By the way,
bad luck, son. And then he goes, oh well, I must leave. And then that guy's like, oh, a very unlucky soldier. And then they all go, and he walks out. You'll never see him again. Those are his 3 scenes in the whole fucking movie.
What?
It's like, you could have saved 10 minutes there.
Why?
And I would have been home already.
Fuck me. That's fucking nonsense.
So
what is the point?
There we go. Soldier laddie. You see him. He's carried away. He's dead. He gets buried. You see, we have been introduced to the Prince Regent. I didn't bother mentioning him because you see the Prince Regent in the middle of the movie giving a speech in Parliament, basically saying we've got to do something about these people agitating for the vote.
Sure.
You see him after the fact explicitly saying to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, "Well done, lads. That was great. I want you to convey to everyone in Manchester that I really appreciate what they did. Fantastic."
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I left out. Because it didn't matter. I left out, actually. The reason that the 3 guys were arrested at the halfway point in the movie was after the speech in Parliament, as he left, someone throws a potato through the window of his carriage. Like, smashes the window with a potato. And because of that, they suspend habeas corpus.
Right.
So you can be arrested for anything.
Yeah.
But I didn't mention that because it's not fucking matter.
Yeah,
these 3 guys.
These 3 guys are still fucking nonsense.
So yeah, you see the Prince Regent congratulate the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. Well done, lads.
Yeah,
great stuff.
Good job, boys.
And it then cuts to them burying the soldier laddie, and that's it. You see the funeral, blah 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 blah. There we go. Done. Cut to black. Film's done.
Wow, that
inexplicable.
I mean, I barely know what to say. Holy shit! What's the point of most of this?
Do you feel like you've learned anything? Because this is my problem. But I think the problem is what the point is that I think Mike Leigh wanted to tell people about the Peterloo massacre.
Sure.
Which, to a certain extent, is fine. But I knew about the Peterloo massacre.
Yeah.
And
the problem is, though, that if you wanted to tell people about it, he's only appealing to people that already knew about it.
I would agree with you.
That's the problem.
I don't think 2 hours of... I think that film's going to get the shit washed out of it in high school history classes.
Sure.
I think if you're studying that period, it is very, very good at laying out the arguments.
Yeah.
It's laying out everybody from like proper levelers, tear it all down, distribute everything equally, we all get the vote, to like really tepid, like let's just reform a little bit, it's all fine. You do see every political argument of the day.
Yeah,
as we said, it'll be an incredibly valuable tool for history teachers. There's another there wasn't a film.
But anybody else?
There wasn't a film. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in history. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Even I was sat thinking, you could have shaved an hour off that movie.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't like. My problem isn't the inclusion of lots of voices. I think that the inclusion of the women is really, really important because, let's point out the fact that they're not even campaigning for anything to do with women. They're getting fucked over anyway.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that would have cut out. I would have frankly beefed up their little 5 minutes and then suddenly they're all pals at the meeting to get cut to fuck by sabres. Why am I meeting three boys who go to jail halfway through the movie?
Yeah,
why am I meeting the guy who should have been in charge on the day?
Yeah.
It's a bit like it's genuinely like they started telling the story before it happened. It's like these are all the important players, so we've got to tell what happens to them. Oh well, actually, he takes
he left.
Yeah, he takes the fucking day off. We'll still carry on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's too much. I mean, it sounds a lot like he didn't know exactly what was happening before he started. He's like, oh shit, no, that guy wasn't there.
And I don't think Mike Leigh should keep going around and saying,
we've already paid that guy to be in these scenes, so we have to leave him.
He keeps going around saying, oh, I didn't know anything about this. Didn't learn anything about this at school. He should stop saying that because it just makes everyone feel like, well,
no, that's not helping at all.
I didn't even dislike it, but it wasn't.
You're going to spend... 2.5 hours.
I don't know that it was successful, and I think it was far... I can't justify 2 hours and 34 minutes of that.
No.
When the only action is in the first 30 seconds and then watching a massacre.
Sure, yeah.
And the thing is, it's pretty explicit, and to a certain extent I admire that, because very often they kind of do the thing when you're showing an atrocity of not really showing it.
Yeah.
It kind of undercuts it. But, like, fucking hell, it's
not worth sitting through the build-up.
2 hours of talking to 20 minutes of people being sworded to death.
Being sworded?
It's very strange.
Oh, being sworded.
I've got myself carried away taking the piss now, so I'm wee-weeing. I can listen to your...
I mean...
You can shout some responses.
So that, what did you call this? Right, that was
Peterloo.
That was Peterloo.
That was
Peterloo.
You get, after the fact, you get two journalists walking across the field, and there's corpses lying around them, and they're like, "Oh fuck, it's like a battlefield. Yeah, it's like Waterloo, Peterloo."
Shut up.
Shut up! They literally do it. They literally do the anatomy of the name.
No! That's fucking awesome. Oh fucking hell! Okay, so that was fucking Peterloo. Basically, I think the summary is: don't ever watch it. Although I don't know why anyone else would, other than Andrew, because he likes history. He does. That's not going to be picked up on the mic at all. I assume that nobody's made it this far, but but thanks for watching. Fucking excellent. Till next time.